The Tennis Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Head to Cut.com, that's KUTT.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play their fantasy pick'em for a chance to win 100 times your money in NBA, MLB, NHL, college basketball, and more. Sign up today using the promo code SGPN to get a 100% deposit match. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently late Sunday night, roughly 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on April 7th. I'm your host, as always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to preview the first clay ATP 1000 event of the year. It's Monte-Carlo time, so we're going to preview the actual outrights. We do have quarters, so we are going to preview the quarters, then the actual picks to win the event. Then we'll get into the lock and dog picks for the first round at the end of the show. But before we get into any of that, do you want to take care of some housekeeping? First of all, I want to remind everybody to like, subscribe on YouTube. Also, a reminder to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple, whichever one you are listening to the podcast to. Other than that, though, a reminder to check out the merch store because we have Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. We have shirts, we have mugs, a lot of great, high-quality merchandise to support the show. So if you do want to get yourself a shirt or a mug, you know where to go. Check out the SGPN merch store. Plus, the merch store does not just have Tennis Gambling Podcast stuff, but also has stuff for all the other podcasts with the network. 20-plus gambling podcasts, absolutely free to listen to. On top of that, we also have a featured show for the week, and the featured show is actually the Golf Gambling Podcast because the guys are giving away a tailor-made Spider X putter. Enter for free at sportscampodcast.com/masters. And also, attention, San Diego, Sean and Ryan are going to a special Circus Sports watch party starting Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. at Swing Social. So free drinks for anyone wearing Cubs or Padres gear. Grab a cocktail and say hi to the guys. But anyway, time to start off with the recap of what happened in the last episode. Overall, decent Sunday for us. Ended up winning the lock, ended up losing the dog, but the overall picks for the matches actually went pretty well. Starting off with the lock, we went with an obscure play, did take the Shelton and Tiafoe first set score after 4 games, 2-2 at -125. Really never in doubt, as neither guy had a break point in the first 4 games. On top of that, the line actually exploded. We got it at -125, and we definitely beat some sharp line movement because the line closed at -200. So beat a 75-cent move, and it worked out well, as that ended up winning. In fact, they basically held the entire way through the first set before Shelton eventually got the break and won the first set 7-5. But the point is, first set through 4 games at 2-2-1, first set through 6 games at 3-3-1. I think first set through 8 games at 4-4 also won. So a lot of holds early like we thought, and it worked out well for us. Nice winner there. Unfortunately, though, did pick up a loss with the dog, as we ended up having the over 2.5 sets in Astoral in the Hurkacz and Martinez match. Plus 135 did not work out, as Martinez did lose in straight sets. Hurkacz served extremely well, and he won his first ever clay title. So congrats to Hurkacz, but we picked up a loss. Either way, though, point is we ended up splitting because we did win the lock, so it could have been worse. But to quickly recap those 3 matches, overall, nothing was too shocking. Technically, the 3 favorites won. Shelton was a slight favorite, so that's why I'm saying technically. But Hurkacz was a pretty decent favorite. He won in straight sets. And Berrettini was a decent favorite. He also won in straight sets. Did get the main lean right, though, for the Berrettini match. We did like Berrettini team total over 12.5, and that got there as he ended up winning the first set 7-5 before coasting to a 6-2 win in the second set. As for Hurkacz, I mentioned it before, Martinez was either fatigued based off of the 3-hour marathon against Ruud the day prior, or just simply put, was no match for the Hurkacz serve. Probably a little bit of both, but Hurkacz, anytime you serve 15 aces on clay, you're absolutely dealing when it comes to the serve. And yeah, he was rolling. He won 83% of the first serve points and 69% of the second serve points. In fact, Martinez did not even have a breakpoint opportunity in the entire match. So Hurkacz had a great overall tournament in Estoril, and he ended up winning his first ever clay title. As for Berrettini, I don't want to say it's the same exact story as Hurkacz because Berrettini did have to fight off a couple of break points, especially at the beginning of the second set. Baena had a chance to take control of it. He completely fumbled away a love 40 spot, and then he ended up getting broken. But the point is, you're looking at a situation where the big server did win all three matches. Berrettini was able to unload with the forehand and the serve. Baena struggled to hold, especially in the second set, and it did seem like Berrettini was doing a good enough job of staying in Baena's service games, and I cannot really say the same for Baena, who tried to, but really could not convert any big points. As you're looking at the actual stats for that match, Baena ended up only converting one of his 8 breakpoint chances. So really not a great job by Baena. Once again, a couple of love 40 spots. But Berrettini did a good job of being clutch as he was able to convert on 4 of the 7 breakpoint chances, and that was all she wrote. Now, as for the Houston match, thought it'd be competitive. Did like the over and the over 2.5 sets. We got everything right in that match. Did lean to Shelton. In the end, main tiebreaker for that was Tiafoe's lack of mental toughness, and we thought that would come back to bite him in this match, and it did because he ended up going down to break early in the third set and really did not threaten much to actually break back because he did not even get a breakpoint opportunity in the third set. Shelton was the better server in terms of aces. In terms of first serve points, he did win 83% of the first serves points in comparison to Tiafoe's 69%. And Tiafoe did a better job defending the second serve. But the point is, Shelton's first serve was just too, I'd say, powerful for Tiafoe to handle. And when you're serving 61% and you end up winning 83% of your first serve points, that's a pretty good combo. And Shelton did a better job converting on the limited number of breakpoint chances in that match, as he also won his first ever clay title. So that's going to do it for the actual recap of the Sunday matches, the 3 finals. Now it's time to get into the actual preview for Monte-Carlo. But before we get into any of that, do want to take a quick word from our sponsor. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and available in 40 states. Peer-to-peer social betting is a new and better way to bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with verifiable outcomes, plus a ton of social features that give it the feel of a betting social network. Cut offers lower vig and fully customizable odds so you can create your own bets. Cut handles the payment side of things, so you never have to worry about chasing down your money. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and more. And they also have great rewards. Get cash back every single time you bet against your friends or other users. So download Cut today in the App Store or over at cut.com. That's K-U-T-T, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the place to play fantasy sports because it is the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. They have great pick'em games. For example, you can pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total into their upcoming games. You can win up to 100 times your money in a single night. Pick between 2 and 5 players to build a pick'em entry. And you can also make rivals picks, which pits 2 players against each other, so you can pick which player you think might have more points, for example, in an NBA game. But a reminder that you should also join Underdog Fantasy because they have a lot of very fun markets for tennis. They have, for example, breaks of serve. They have aces. They have a lot of fun tennis options to make matches more interesting, and I recommend you joining the platform in order to take advantage of those opportunities. So sign up today with promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them on the App Store, and don't forget to register with the promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Must be 18 plus and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping the title matches from Sunday Now it's time to get into the preview for Monte Carlo, starting off with the recent winners. I'm only going to go 3 years deep because it was delayed because of COVID. But looking at the last 3 winners, Rublev did beat Rune in the final last year. You're looking at Tsitsipas beating Fokina in a surprising finals appearance, and Tsitsipas did beat Rublev in the final 3 years ago. So the point is, you're looking at Tsitsipas, who's won 2 of the last 3. Does that matter in this case? Probably not, because Tsitsipas has been useless for the last, especially couple months. You could argue maybe a year. But Tsitsipas is a lost cause. Rublev has been struggling recently. So I'm not sure if recent winners are actually going to tell you anything, unless you want to take a bit of a flyer with somebody with decent plus odds. But the point is, those are the last couple of winners. I did mention before, we do have quarter odds, so we are going to talk about the quarters to start off with. So looking at the first quarter, you have Djokovic making his first appearance since he fired Ivanisevic, or since they technically went their separate ways, however you want to phrase it. But Djokovic is about minus 190. Rublev, as I just mentioned, is the defending champion at plus 380. De Minaur is 11-1. Mussetti's 11-1. Fee is 18-1. You have Greek Sport 25-1. Wawrinka 25-1. Munar 35-1. You get the point from there. So going through the actual picks I'm going to have for this actual quarter, Djokovic has not always done well at Monte Carlo, so it's kind of tricky if I wanted to actually back him following his shocking upset against Nardi and the fact that he has not played in a week or two. But I do think the overall draw is not that bad, and I do think that Rublev just has a hard time of beating Djokovic. He really has never been able to do so, and I think it's more of a mental block at this point. So I am going to link to Djokovic at a minus 190. However, I did not only take Djokovic. I do have another player, but I am going to at least talk about Djokovic at a minus 190 price. I just think the draw is pretty favorable, and I do think that based on the other star players who are near him, you're looking at Rublev in his quarter, De Minaur. De Minaur did beat him on hard court earlier this year, but this is clay, which is not, I'd say, De Minaur's favorite surface by any means. And Rublev, we know, has a hard time beating Djokovic anyway. So a pretty decent overall set of players for Djokovic to be paired with. So I'm going to go with him as the favorite at minus 190. But I am going to pick somebody who might face off against him in a couple rounds. Musetti at 11-1. Musetti has beaten Djokovic on clay before. We know he's a solid clay player, despite kind of screwing us over with the tournament that we just had, where he ended up losing in Estoril very early on to Borges. But I think he's in good form. Did beat Fritz in the first round here on Sunday. So I'm going to go with Musetti as my long shot pick at 11-1 if Djokovic is not fully right, either mentally or physically. I do want another horse in this race. Moving on to the second quarter, though, you're looking at another big favorite. In fact, the biggest favorite out of the quarters. You have Alcaraz at minus 250. You have Ruud at plus 350. Hurkacz at 11-1, fresh off the title. Draper at 18-1. Humbert at 20-1. Felix at 20-1, Agut at 28-1, Tabilo at 35-1, and a bunch of other players who have no chance. So starting off with the surprising option for the second quarter, I am not going to take Alcaraz. Now, you might be wondering why. He definitely should win the quarter. You're not wrong. He should. However, 250 is a bit expensive, especially with some rumors going around that Alcaraz's forearm might be bothering him. There were some rumors that he injured in practice a day or two ago, so I'm not sure how injured he is. Might be an absolute myth. I'm sure it'll look fine anyway. But the point is, if he's going to be minus 250, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical if there are any rumors at all about your health. Not to mention the fact that even though Alcaraz did win the title in Indian Wells, he still has not exactly done a great job of, I'd say, being a worthy favorite in a lot of these tournaments, because Alcaraz has only won one title since Wimbledon last year, and that was Indian Wells. We saw him lose to Dimitrov in Miami right after that. Now, he's still been making decent runs, so he still might be able to get through the actual quarter. And I will admit, the players in his quarter are not the greatest, but 250 I just think is too steep for a guy that might have form issues. So I'm going to pass on Alcaraz. I think he might get it done, but I don't see any value on it. So for that reason, I am going to pivot to 2 separate options. Now, I did shop around, and I did find a better price on Ruud. I found 4-1, and I'm also going to go with Hurkacz at 11-1. Coverings why I'm going to go with both players. Ruud, even though he lost to Martinez, another guy who screwed us out of an outright last week, or I should say last tournament, the point is Ruud still played very well as far as I'm concerned. He has kind of shifted gears mentally to taking on a more offensive approach. and I do think that his game will translate well to Monte-Carlo. Martinez played the best match of his career, and Ruud went down fighting, couldn't get it done, but I was kind of impressed that he didn't officially roll over and die when he was down 1-5 in the third set. But I think 4-1 for a player of Ruud's caliber on clay. If I am doubtful of Alcaraz's health, I think it's a decent pivot option. So I'm going to lean to Ruud at 4-1. And Hurkacz is off a title. So maybe he has, I don't want to say solved clay like Medvedev did last year, but maybe he's undervalued on clay. If the serve is going to be that good, like it was, for example, in Storl, then he can do some damage. And we saw that with Medvedev last year. So I do think you're looking at a spot where Hurkacz at 11-1 could be mispriced. I'm going to lean to Hurkacz to build off of that title in a Storl, and I think he might be able to make a relatively respectable run. The problem is, though, Ruud and Hurkacz play against each other before playing against Alcaraz. So once again, Alcaraz does have a pretty easy draw to actually make the quarters, but I do think you're looking at a decent spot to maybe pivot off a favorite. And if I am going to go for some value, I think the second quarter is a decent place to do that. Moving on to the third quarter, you are looking at a pretty interesting and wide open quarter based on the odds. Medvedev is the favorite at plus 175. Zverev is plus 250. Tsitsipas is 450. Once again, he's the champion in 2 of the last 3. Kashanov's 11-1. Jari's 12-1. Echeverry's 18-1. Sarundalo's 18-1. Nori's 18-1. Monfils is 20-1. You get the point. So a lot of talented clay players. This could be a very open quarter, which is why Medvedev, as the favorite, is still plus money. In fact, he's the only favorite in a quarter to be plus money here. But I do think Medvedev, despite winning a clay title last year, is still not that comfortable on clay. And he also has not played clay in a while because he's coming right off of the appearance that he had during the hardcourt season in the Masters 1000 events, ended up making a deep run in Miami, which did not work out for him as he ended up getting killed by Sinner in the semis. But he's not played a clay match in a while, and as a result, I do think rust might be an issue early. If he got upset, it would not shock me. We all know Medvedev, before last year, was really bad on clay. Even last year, after he won the 1000 title, he lost immediately in the first round to Seabold Wild in the French Open. So we know that a Medvedev is not exactly trustworthy in the clay season. So I am going to pivot to a guy who is very good on clay, both before and after the serious injury. Give me Zverev. I did shop around, and I found a plus 275. But simply put, he's a good clay player, and I think that he's in line for a good showing. Now, to go through the actual draw for Zverev, it is fine. He has a bye, then a matchup against either Offner or Evans, then either Jari, Echeverry, De Gea, or Tsitsipas. The point is, if I'm low on Tsitsipas, I think that's actually a decent section for Zverev to be a favorite in a decent amount of matches. Offner's been a mess. Evans has not been very good either, and Tsitsipas, we know, has been an absolute disaster. So it wouldn't shock me if Tsitsipas did lose early to the winner of the Jari and Echeverry match. But Tsitsipas at 450, I think, is way off based on reputation. He has a hard time winning any matches at this point because he can't return serve to save his life. So I have questions about his focus and his overall game right now. I think that Zverev is a very good option to take advantage of a weak favorite and a weak third option. Give me Zverev at plus 275 as my only choice for the third quarter. Moving on to the fourth quarter, you are looking at Sinner being the favorite here, despite not being known for his, I'd say, clay prowess. He's minus 165. Rune is plus 330 off of the runner-up appearance last year. I ended up seeing Dimitrov at 11-1, Berrettini's 12-1. That could be a very fun matchup, and I believe the second round. George is at 14-1 after killing Bublik in the match on Sunday. Arnaldi's at 20-1. Court is 20-1. Fokina's 25-1. Did make a final here a couple years ago. Struff at 28-1. You get the point. So for this quarter, even though Sinner is not known for being a great clay player, it's really, really tough to go against the best player in the world right now. So I think for that case, I think 165 might actually be cheap for Sinner. And I think that backing a guy who's clearly improved in all the areas he's needed to improve on for his, I'd say, career to, I'd say, explode exponentially in a positive way, I like Sinner here. You could argue he's undervalued. Maybe he is ready to burst onto the clay scene. But 165 I like. When the second favorite in your overall quarter is Rune, who we know has a lot of just mental toughness issues as well. It's a weak quarter, simply put. So I'm going to go with Sinner at minus 165, back in the guy that's only lost one time in 2024. And for my long shot pick, I am going to go with a pretty big price disparity. I mentioned before it is 11-1 on DraftKings, but I did find 16-1 on BetMGM. Give me Dimitrov at 16-1. Now, I know Dimitrov is in a pretty tough, I'd say, collection of matches if he's able to win out, because he is in the same section as Berrettini. So he has a wild card in the first round, then potentially Berrettini, then potentially Rune. But Dimitrov's been really good in 2024, simply put. We know that Dimitrov's overall game, I would say clay's probably his weakest surface, but his game's pretty well rounded, and he has been decent on clay in his career. But I think 16-1 is a pretty generous price for a guy that's been really, really good for the entire 2024. His confidence is at, I don't know if it's at an all-time high, but it's at definitely a high for the 2020s, for this decade that we're in, because he's been really good. Made the final in Miami. He's made deep runs in basically every event he's been in so far this year. Yes, on hard court, but at least we know that his overall level is back to where we hoped it would be. And with that being the case, I think 16-1 is a very, very good price. So give me Dimitrov at 16-1. So once again, my picks for the actual outrights for the quarters in Monte Carlo. First quarter, I'm going to go with two choices: Djokovic at minus 190, and I am going to go with Musetti at 11-1. For the second quarter, give me Ruud at 4-1, and give me Hurkacz at 11-1. If Alcaraz wins the quarter, it is what it is, but I'm not laying 250 with a guy that might have forearm issues. For the third quarter, give me Zverev by himself at plus 275. And for the fourth quarter, give me Sinner at minus 165, and give me Dimitrov at 16-1. Moving on to the actual outright picks to win the overall tournament. Reading off the odds first, the favorite in this event is going to be Alcaraz at around 180. You have Sinner at 3-1. You have Djokovic at 3-1. Medvedev's at 14-1. Rune and Zverev are both at 16-1. Ruud's at 20-1. Rublev is at 20-1 to defend his title. You're looking at Tsitsipas at 28-1. And then you have the series long shots. Everybody else from that point forward is 50-1. Am I picking a long shot, a series long shot to win? No. I'm not going to pick Hurkacz. I'm not going to pick Dimitrov, both of them being at 50-1. I don't see any value on it. I think one of the, I don't want to say favorites, but I think that one of the top 8 guys will win this event. But looking at the actual picks that I have for this tournament, even though, once again, not exactly known for his clay prowess, I have to take Sinner at 3-1. The guy's just been so good for the entire year, and I do think he might be in line to be a bit mispriced. Now, you might be wondering, but Scott, why would you take him at 3-1 if Alcaraz and Djokovic are both in the same tournament and they're historically better on clay? Simple reason, because Sinner's on the other side of the bracket. If you were not paying attention to the actual bracket, Alcaraz and Djokovic is a projected semifinal matchup. So as a result, I'm going to completely ignore that side of the bracket. I'll let Alcaraz and Djokovic kill each other, and as a result, I'm going to try to capitalize by taking somebody on the other side. But Sinner, looking at hypothetical matches, his semifinal matchup potentially would be the winner of that absurd quarter that Medvedev is favored in at plus 175. So the point is, Sinner might have a pretty easy draw to a final. And with that being the case, I think 3-1 for a guy that clearly has been the best player this season is worth something. So give me 3-1 on a bit of a bolder favorite choice. I'm sure most people would take Alcaraz or Djokovic. Djokovic, I still can't fully trust because he has not looked that good so far this year. Post-Australian Open, also switched coaches, and it's his first clay event of the year. And historically speaking, Djokovic is not exactly the, I'd say, quickest to adjust to clay. And I do think he could be in line for maybe losing early. I still picked him to win the quarter, but the point is I'm not as confident in him as I usually am. So I have to at least acknowledge that I'd say he has an opportunity to surprise me. But I do think that him struggling in this event would definitely be the conclusion that I'm expecting to reach by the end of this actual tournament. And Alcaraz has the issue with the arm. We'll see what the story is, but I do like the idea of taking two guys on the other side. So I mentioned I am going to go with Sinner at plus 3,000 at plus a 300. My second choice will be my pick from the third quarter, a guy that's going to be relatively long with the odds. Give me Zverev at 16-1. I just think he's a very good clay player. He's been in good form this year, and once again, he's on the opposite side of Alcaraz and Djokovic. So I do think if you are going to potentially be getting Zverev to make a deep run, since I don't trust Medvedev in his quarter or Tsitsipas in his quarter, I like 16-1. We've seen him beat Alcaraz in the French Open before, so I know that he can handle the tough matchup there. And he also beat him earlier this year in the Australian Open. So I know that Zverev, I don't want to say has the head-to-head edge on Alcaraz, but he's done quite well in the head-to-head. So I kind of like that prospect, and I think that 16-1 is a good price. So give me Zverev at 16-1 as my long shot to win the event. That's going to do it, though, for the actual outright picks. And now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But before we get into that, I do want to take another quick word from our sponsor. We're brought to you by AVO. AVO is the premier sports betting arbitrage tool. If you're new to arbitrage sports betting, it's pretty simple. You're betting both sides of an outcome at two different sports books to lock in a profit. I arbitrage all the time. It is guaranteed profit if you find a big enough disparity with the lines, and the AVO tool can really help you with that because it scans the sportsbook looking for discrepancies in the odds and then tells you how much money you'll need to place with each sportsbook for the expected profit. And they also have the tool that's purposefully set up to be easy to use and lightning fast because speed is a big part of arbitrage sports betting. The best part of AVO, though, is that it's free to use without restrictions. That's right, completely free. Get started today at arbsvsodds.com. So arbsvsodds.com. That's arbsvsodds.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished going through the outright picks for Monte-Carlo. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go to a matchup between Moutet and a matchup against Papiron. I am going to go with Moutet money line at minus 144. Simply put, Moutet I think is going to be more comfortable in the courts here, or on the courts here, because he went through qualifying, so he's already made the adjustment. We know Moutet made a pretty good run in Chile a couple weeks ago, had some injuries that kind of derailed his career. But now he's healthy, and he's looked pretty good on clay, and I do think he'll look pretty good here once again. Papiron, though, won a clay title in Umag in the past, but he's not played a clay match since July. So I think that there's going to be a little bit of rust. I mention this all the time. It's not exactly easy to suddenly change surfaces and hit the ground running, and I think Papiron will struggle in his first match back on clay in I don't want to say a year, but basically like 9-10 months. So I think he's going to struggle in the spot. Plus, Moutet has owned him in the head-to-head. Moutet is 3-0 head-to-head against Papiron. One match on clay, but he did get the job done. Point is, Moutet, I just think, is in a good spot here, and I think there is a good reason why he's favored in this matchup as a qualifier. Give me Moutet money line at minus 144 as my lock. For my dog, I am going to look at a matchup between Etcheverry and Jarry. It was a matchup we actually saw a couple weeks ago before Etcheverry unfortunately got injured before the start of the third set. But I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets in the Etcheverry and Jarry match at plus 130. The head-to-head has been an absolute war between these two, as each of the first 4 head-to-head meetings have gone to a deciding set, and all 4 meetings were on clay. Now, technically, I don't know if over 2.5 sets would have cashed in the last head-to-head meeting because Etcheverry did retire in between the second and third set. So I believe no point was ever played in the third set, but they already split the first 2. So you have seen each player win one of the first 2 sets in all 4 head-to-head meetings. So I expect to see history repeat itself once again. Both guys have their unique style. They're both very talented on clay, and I do see a bit of a war in the first round. On a side note, a hell of a first-round matchup. Really just a great overall I'd say it's a potential marathon and a potential war. So as a result, I am going to back that accordingly. Plus, Jarry's been a bit of a deciding set magnet recently, as he has gone to a deciding set in 3 of his last 5 matches, all on hard court, but still, I do think based on the head-to-head history, this is a pretty good price at plus 130. Once again, 4 head-to-head meetings all on clay, and they all went to a deciding set. It's a great price at plus 130. I'm going to take it. So once again, my picks for the show. The lock is going to be on Moutet money line at minus 144, and my dog is going to be on Etcheverry and Jarry over 2.5 sets at plus 130. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Tennis Gambling Podcast. A reminder, since it is a Masters 1000 event, we're going to go through each round of the tournament. So back once again for the second round. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show, the MLB show, the NFL show. Get the point. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.